It is December 1967. Star Trek, the original series, is getting ready to go off the air, much to the despair of the cast, crew, and fans of the show. Not yet ready to say goodbye to the Starship Enterprise and its crew, B. Joe Trimble, a Star Trek fan and now published science fiction writer, organizes a letter-writing campaign to save the series. It works. Following the outrage from Trekkies across the country, Star Trek runs for one additional season on NBC, eventually airing its last episode in 1969. Bijo was one of thousands of women extremely invested in the original Star Trek series, and her letter-writing campaign was one wave in the ocean of organizations, committees, publications, and conventions spearheaded by women from around the world. Their contributions have shaped the way fans gather, create, and communicate even today. Indeed, Comic-Con would not be the way it is today without them. So let's take a look into the women who created strange new worlds, organized new civilizations, and boldly went where no man had gone before. Many critics of the original series deem the show sexist for its costume design, romantic subplots, or the disproportionate male-to-female ratio on the show. So why did women even like Star Trek? In the early days of primetime television, the majority of roles played by women were mothers, maids, and secretaries. Star Trek, on the other hand, featured women in leadership, science, and adventurer roles. They worked alongside the men and were respected as equals and professionals in their fields. Additionally, while some contemporaries might look back on Star Trek and see outdated ideas of femininity or over-sexualization, Dr. Patricia Battelle-Becker, a professor of art history at Montana State University, maintains that female fans of the time saw women who were able to retain their femininity in the workplace and express their sexuality with flashy makeup, pristine hairdos, and exquisitely tailored futuristic costumes. As popular as the show was, it often left fans, particularly women, wanting more.
Where's the rest? Yeah, where's the rest?
When a show gets canceled after 79 episodes, how does one go about scratching that itch? The answer came in Zines. The first of many Star Trek fanzines, titled Spockanalia, was published in September 1967 by Deborah Langsom and Sherna Comerford. It featured original stories, art, poetry, and commentary on the show. Show creator Gene Roddenberry has hailed it as required reading in his writer's room. Zines offered a medium in which to further expand and explore the Star Trek universe. Trekkie women gained a reputation for being a little overzealous about the show and the subsequent content they created themselves, but Henry Jenkins, an American media scholar, looks at it this way. They employ images and concepts drawn from mass culture texts to explore their subordinate status, to envision alternatives, to voice their frustrations and anger, and to share new understandings with others. Another cultural phenomenon that rose from Star Trek zines was the creation of slash fiction, in which two characters would be written about in romantic situations in ways that usually wouldn't be shown on television. Most notably, the pairing of Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. There was a surprising number of fans writing romantic fiction about the two men, especially considering the political climate of the late 60s and early 70s following the Stonewall riots and the gay rights movement. Many women would gather in their homes to discuss the show and the latest edition of their favorite zines. Eventually, these gatherings became more organized and widespread, leading to the formation of fan conventions. 300 to 400 people were expected to attend the first official Star Trek fan convention held in New York in 1972. 3,000 Star Trek fans attended. Conventions continued to grow in popularity. By 1994, there were over 90 Star Trek conventions held annually, all boasting trivia and costume contests, artwork and literature created by fans, collectibles to be bought and traded, and occasionally appearances from actors on the show. Author James Van Heist says in the Star Trek Fans Handbook that conventions were like being ushered into another world, where every facet of the day had something to do with Star Trek. It might be seeing the incredible variety of merchandise in the dealer's room, or seeing a star of the series in person and having the opportunity to ask questions. To describe it as a time warp would not be too far from wrong. Star Trek conventions eventually grew in size and inclusivity and opened their doors to fans from other realms of science fiction. Star Trek always was about peace and uniting different worlds, after all. It is no secret that Star Trek itself has left a huge cultural impact. But it is important to acknowledge the contributions made by fans, particularly the housewives, mothers, librarians, teachers, and countless other women who dedicated their time and talents to broadening the Star Trek universe. The original series would have been canceled early if not for B. Joe Trimble and her letter-writing campaign. The outpour of support for the show and outrage at the possibility of cancellation set the stage for future projects like the Star Trek animated series, the 6 theatrical movies starring the original cast, and all subsequent spin-off series like The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. Star Trek conventions organized by these same women paved the way for fan conventions as we know them today. Now, you can find a convention for just about any niche topic you can think of. Video games, anime, mystery novels, silent movies, you name it. Even San Diego Comic-Con, the biggest fan convention in the world, started as 300 people in a hotel basement talking about comics. And now, much like how Star Trek conventions evolved to include fans from outside Star Trek, Comic-Con boasts everything from comics to video games to sneak peeks at Marvel's next 18 movies. Trekkies broke societal barriers and redefined what it meant to be a fan. They did more than just watch the show. They carved out a space for women in science fiction, reinterpreted the work in a way that was meaningful to them and other marginalized groups, and paved the way for fans of any piece of media to express themselves through art, writing, and annoying the creators so much that they changed their plans in order to shut you up.